ESPN 620.
Howard, do you like surveys from the NFLpa? Are you into those? I mean, do you complain about the press food at Cardinal games or anything like that?
No, I'm not a complainer.
Okay.
And they don't ask us anyway.
Yeah. So you haven't had to fill out a survey on your game day experience at a Cardinal game or anything from the press perspective?
No, I've not had to do that, no.
So, but it sounds as though when you finished in the bottom, a few years in a row, it's finally starting to resonate, and they're putting in $100+ million to build a new facility or improve a facility. So it's sad that it had to get to that point, but maybe that will help in the long run to get some better free agents here.
You do wonder if it hadn't been for these report cards, would this have been something that they would have hoped to do and plan anyway? You would like to think that they would have, because of the substandard facilities that they are compared to a lot of other places in the NFL. And the one point I made yesterday was that obviously we don't know what the total cost is going to be, and I don't want to sneeze at $100 million, but in the last 7 years, there's been 3 new team facilities built in the NFL. And 7 years ago it was the Vikings at $115 million. 4 years ago was the Dolphins at $135. And last year was the Chargers in LA at $250 million. Now, I know that it costs a lot more to do stuff in California, but the thing you wonder about, if this is around $100 million, I mean, you want to put together a facility that is hopefully at least going to span the test of time over the next 25, 30 years. And if you're not doing this or doing that to keep it around $100 million, I wonder. But certainly it's going to be better. I mean, this is a team, the locker room, they don't even, all the players aren't even in the main locker room. They have an auxiliary locker room that when we're in the locker room for 45 minutes on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we don't even see a bunch of the guys. Now, it's not the guys on the regular roster. It's practice squad guys and some others, but they're in a different place.
That would suck, Howard. When you think about that, if you're a player, you get to the NFL and you got to go down the hall. you're in that locker. Yeah. It's like you're JV. You're in the JV locker room. It's true.
Yeah, no, exactly right. And so I think they realized that they had to do some things, and whether the report cards sped it along a little bit, who knows? But it was telling that after the report card came out yesterday, that within an hour, the team's statement came out where they said that they had told the players during last season that this was in the works. So you do wonder, well, then why not announce that? Why not announce it to the public that you have these plans in place and, get ahead of it instead of being reactive? But at least they're doing something. What's going to be interesting, guys, is because it's going to be, at the facility now, what's going to be the time frame of doing all this with locker room, with training room, with weight room. I mean, I tell people, people should go to chargers.com, right? And they have pictures of their new facility that opened last year. And the weight room itself is probably as big as the bottom floor of the Cardinals locker room, weight room, second locker room, and all the other stuff. It is unbelievably big. And so I say to people, do that. So, but anyway, what's going to happen while this is all being done? How is that going to potentially interfere with the players and the locker room and all that? So that's going to be very interesting to see how they get this accomplished in the next 2 years.
It's interesting because, players, their second or third contract, obviously they want to get paid, but they want to go where the culture's right, where they have a chance to win or win it all. But all that being said, all this ancillary stuff that we're looking at, it matters to them. The treatment of the families, where do they stay? How do they stay? Because these guys, it's funny, when you talk to a lot of the free agents, it all comes into play. Is the owner a winner? Will he spend the money for X, Y, Z, all the above? So when you see these surveys, this stuff does matter. And most on part of it is a lot of these teams are either contending for playoffs and or in the playoffs.
No, it's 100% true. And when players have a choice, granted, money is the biggest driving factor.
Sure, yeah.
And it is a positive that for 2 years in a row, Jonathan Gannon has been rated very highly by the players in the two areas that they ask questions about. One is the use of their time and the other is listening to the players in terms of suggestions or whatever it might be, and he's rated high. And so that's a big positive. There's no doubt about it. And so, but the other things, certainly are a part of it. And you granted, like I said, a lot of it's about the money, but you also want to be in a place that you feel, you have a chance to win. Now, having said all this, and even with the situation, you wonder, we don't know when it was exactly that the team told the players about the facility, a new facility being planned, but did that have an impact on Budda Baker signing a new contract? Did that have an impact on James Conner signing a new contract? Because they started to see that at least they were committed to make things better. So you'd have to believe, both of those guys signed late in the season. So you have to believe that was probably after, they were told about that. So, there are positive signs. And certainly, you look at two teams, Washington and the Chargers. A lot of people say, well, last year the Cardinals overall were 27th. This year they're back down the bottom. Well, a big reason of that is because other teams have gotten better too. I mean, Washington jumped from 31 to I think 5 or something like that.
Right.
The Chargers jumped from being very, very low to high. And Washington obviously changed the owner. They changed a lot of the way they were doing things. And the Chargers, of course, opened up that incredible new facility, which had, players just had to be, amazed by it. So other teams are reacting to this also. And there's some other teams near the bottom, like the Chiefs, have had issues with the facilities and, and all that. But hey, they're good enough. They have good enough players to win that they win anyway. But you always have some outliers. And so, like you said, all of this stuff matters. And it's important when you're trying to build a winning culture. But that's why I say, this has to stand the test of time. And obviously whatever they do is going to be good for 10, 15 years, you think, but then you start to wonder how many other teams are going to go past them because they start, building new facilities. So that's all in the mix. And you do wonder too, one thing we haven't heard is, the league passed in October this procedure where teams can sell 10% equity in their teams, and it can be to private corporations. And so you wonder if this is helping, there hasn't been anything announced from the Cardinals end, but you wonder if they've been able to attract some of that, which would help with, paying for a new facility like this.
Howard Balzer's our guest on the Right Toyota guest line. Howard, we had Michael Bankston on the show earlier this week. He made a statement, and I asked him twice about it, and he reiterated it both times. It's his belief that this will be Kyler Murray's last year here as a Cardinal quarterback. Have you heard anything? Are you under the same thought process that will be the case?
I don't know how anybody can say that categorically, because I guess he's a soothsayer. I would say this: if he thinks the team isn't going to be very good, then put some money on it and put some money where your mouth is. If you believe it's going to be, because if it's his final year, it's because he doesn't play well and the team doesn't do well. And if you know absolutely that's the case, then I give you a lot of credit for being a guy who's able to predict the future. The reality is we don't know. We don't know what this team is going to do next season. And here's the thing that gets me, guys, and Jonathan Gannon says this all the time, and yet fans and media ignore it. When he's asked about Murray, he said, and of course he has to say he's very comfortable with him. Tuesday he said, I'm not going to make any power statements, but I think he's going to have a hell of a year. Well, that's a power statement to me. But then he also says it's about the team, right? So when you get down to the 5-yard line in a game that you can win against the Vikings, and a rookie tight end has a false start on first down, on first and goal, and then it's first and goal from the 10, and you have a jailbreak on the defensive line that leads to a sack on second down, and yet after the game, everyone blames Kyler Murray. There's a lot of things that have to go on around the quarterback that will produce a winning offense. And certainly Murray's a big part of it. There's no doubt about it. But all the other things have to be right also. I mean, heck, we saw in the Super Bowl what happens when your offensive line can't block anybody. And Patrick Mahomes looked like, he looked like a pretender at the position. And we know he's not. We know how good he is. But a lot of how good he is because all those things around him are also very good. And that's the reality of football that many times people don't want to acknowledge. When a team doesn't play well on offense, no one says, "Oh, the offensive line didn't do this, or they couldn't do this, or they couldn't do that." No, it's either the play calling or the quarterback, and it's a one-trick pony in terms of that analysis. So to get back to your original question, if things go bad and he's a part of that, who knows? Perhaps the Cardinals will decide to move on from him. Then, of course, the question will be who's next. You're trying to put together a better team all around you. But who's going to be that next quarterback if it's not Kyler Murray?
Well,
and for anyone to think that they know that answer on February 27th is just a tad premature.
Well, let me back up just a little bit. What he alluded to is that if he didn't see the progress or see the improvement out of Kyler Murray, what Michael was saying is that he said it could be a situation where he's not bad, he's not the guy, with all things considered. So to that point,
that could be the case.
And that's how Michael. So Jimmy, that's how Michael framed that. Is he said if he didn't see improvement, but
that's what he said.
He said
I don't. This will be his last year. I asked him twice.
Okay, but
that's what he said.
But he had some things there tied to that.
That's what he said on the show.
I get it, but what did he also say? But the offensive line has to be better against the better teams.
Right.
That is Marvin Harrison going to take a big jump in year 2?
Exactly.
All those things have to happen for the team to be successful. And it's interesting to me after that really hard stretch of 3 games, two against Seattle and 1 against Minnesota, where it started to go bad. Everyone was saying, especially after that first Seattle game, but in the other 3, how the offensive line got just totally outplayed by those defenses. And yet by the end of the season, when they went 2-5, no one was talking about the offensive line. They were talking about how improved they were and how well they played all season, and that Kyler Murray was 2-5 in the last 7 games. Everyone they had that collective amnesia of what happened in those 3 games. Because what the heck, if they'd won 1 or 2 of those, they're probably in the playoffs, right? But they didn't, and so that's where Gannon says the whole team has to be better for Kyler Murray to have that consistency that you want to see from him. And that's been the case in the past. It was always, now, the narrative is switched now from Cliff Kingsbury was the problem at the end of seasons, that it was Kyler Murray the problem. Even though in 2020 and 2021, he was playing injured and Hopkins was injured and their running backs were injured and their offensive line was injured. But everyone forgets all that. It all centers around the analysis of the quarterback. And I'm not saying don't hold the quarterback accountable, but understand that this is the ultimate team game. And for a quarterback to play well and to compete, Andy Reid said it during Super Bowl week. Someone asked him about working for Howie Roseman, the Eagles general manager, when he was in Philadelphia. And he said, the great thing about Howie is he understood what you have to have in football to win. And that's in the offensive. And
you guys are good to start wrapping.
Because if you don't have that, you can't function as a team or as an offense or as a defense. That's Andy Reid saying that about Howie Roseman. And yet I very rarely hear the analysts here or anywhere say that when it comes to, what went wrong with a team. And that's where the Cardinals obviously have to be a lot better on the offensive and defensive lines. And they showed progress on the offensive line. Defensive line, they were playing without 3 starters last year. We'll see what happens in the offseason. But like I said, all of those things have to come together for a team to play well. And yet sometimes I think a lot of people forget that this is a team sport, not an individual sport.
I got about a minute here, but to that point, the Howie Rosemans and the Chiefs with Beach, can this Cardinals team be committed to go and help him improve and make that commitment to go get those linemen via the draft and/or free agencies? That's the whole part. Is ownership. They've got to be committed and allow him to improve.
Well, there's no question. No, there's no doubt about that. And I believe they will be. It doesn't mean that you spend I have a story going up at Cards Wire comparing Dante Stills to Milton Williams. Milton Williams is the new name of the year in the NFL. A guy who had 5 sacks during the season, 0.5 more than Dante Stills. Is Milton Williams, and I'm not saying Dante Stills is a Pro Bowler, but Dante Stills is a pretty good player, and you look at the numbers, and they were pretty much what Milton Williams was last year. And yet there's people saying now that Milton Williams should be paid $20 million a year. I think any team that does that is out of their mind. And so you do have to be committed to building the best roster that you can. And, they committed to re-signing guys, and I think they'll make that commitment. But I also don't think they're going to spend money just to spend money so the fans can say, oh, they're committed. You have to make smart decisions, because we've seen over a long time in free agency that a lot of the decisions that are made are not smart ones.
Howard, great stuff today, man. Seriously, good stuff. Appreciate your time as always. And I look forward to seeing that most recent story on Cards Wire. So thanks for the time again today.
My pleasure, guys. Take care.
That's Howard Balzer. Great stuff. H. Balzer 721, Sirius XM NFL Radio, and Cards Wire for USA Today. So good stuff. Love it.
Yep.
All right. It's brought to you today by All City Towing. Join the team at the largest towing company in the state. Of course, that's All City Towing. They're hiring dispatchers, call takers, drivers. I mean, the list goes on, and everything's up on their website at allcitytowing.com. Benefits, too, by the way. I failed to mention 401k employer match, employer paid life insurance, monthly fuel allowance. Jimmy, you can fill in the rest. That's allcitytowing.com, All City Towing, where your future is on the move. This is ESPN 620.